Hello and welcome. This is Yolanta, Change Your Life Retreats. My guest today is Stefania Johnson, a senior business professional with over 20 years of experience in supply chain, analytics, consulting, management, and mentorship, the owner of Stefire Enterprise, and co-host of Sistership Network radio show. So where they focus on everyday challenges and overcoming obstacles through life experiences. Welcome, Stefania.
Thank you. Nice to see you, Yolanta, and thank you for having me on. Appreciate it.
Thank you, thank you. So the first question is, how you doing? How you feeling?
Um, I will tell you, it's there's been a journey. I'm in a very positive mind space, I shall say. Now, not that I have been before. And I'm sure through again all the challenges we go through in life, we experience the up and downs of life. I will say today's a good day.
Yeah,
Feeling good.
that led me to the next questions. What are the main sources of maybe the way you feel or the way you felt before, or any
hmm
pressure in your
hmm
role,
hmm
or how is your role changed to bring you to
Yeah.
this point?
Yeah, so I had such a interesting journey in my career. In the corporate environment, it's very challenging when you start kind of elevating, right, and start moving up in the organization. And as you grow and as you move up, there's more challenging roles, more higher expectations. Work-life balance is less, and working is more. And through the years of the experiences I've had in the multiple roles that I've had in the organization, I never realized what burnout was like, right? Or what does it mean, or how are you experiencing burnout, and what are the signs of burnout? I think for me, the biggest thing was I wanted to succeed in every role that I was in. I wanted to help people. I wanted to help my employees. I wanted to help my clients. And you don't realize then they say you can't put 110% in 100% bag, right? In a bag of, potatoes, let's say. You can only fit 20 in there, you're putting 30 in there. And what's happening is you're not becoming as effective as you think you are. And you're also burning yourself out. You don't have the opportunity to really think, be more strategic, really focus on not just the work, but how is it affecting you emotionally, physically, things of that nature. And that's where burnout starts coming into play.
Yeah.
What a lot
What
of
ha
people don't realize, yeah, what a lot of people don't realize is that as you continue to put more and more on you, the less you have for yourself. And that's where the challenges start.
so what had to
Um,
happen to brought you to this point? Had to happen like,
well,
mhm.
so I had a pretty interesting experience a couple months back. I actually just turned 50 years old in December. And I started thinking about just my life, my career, what I wanted to do with my life. And I was speaking with, my leadership team and saying, hey, I've never been in a position to ask for what I want out of my career. I think it was just fear of just the expectations or not knowing what is next, right? So you kind of hold yourself back. And I started thinking about, I plan on retiring in the next 15 years, 10, 12, 15 years. I don't want to burn myself out in my career, and don't want to burn myself out from a personal standpoint. However, I also got to a point where I said to myself, what is it that you want to do? You have to be really true to yourself. Stop worrying about what everybody else wants and the expectations that everybody puts on you. Start thinking about what you want. You're later in your career. Now start establishing your boundaries, start establishing what you want out of life. What do you want out of your career? And I would say about November period, and again, I'm getting to my 50th birthday, and I'm starting to think about my future. I'm starting to think about aging and, families aging and the challenges they're going through and how I have to engage there. And I went through a pretty traumatic experience in my life, and it actually hit me in November. I kind of reverted back to, shall I say, a past experience that really put me in a really emotional, very depressive state. And I started realizing it was not just that experience that was also affecting me, but it was also the burnout that I was having within also the environment I was working in. And I finally said to myself, I have to start thinking about self. I have to start thinking, how am I going to be effective if I'm not good with myself? And that's when I started the journey of self-care and self-love and self-reflection and dealing with past traumas. And my journey there started with just saying I needed time to reflect on me and what I wanted. And I needed to be a little more selfish, because from a mental health standpoint, what we don't realize as a society is that we all go through challenges in life. We all go through some level of trauma or experience. And we have to learn how to deal with those things and how to cope with those things. I reached out for help. I did. I felt myself getting in a very depressive state. So I reached out for counseling. I started coming to Magnolia's Wellness Center and started getting some self-care there. And I started really writing and journaling my everyday experiences and talking to people, talking to people. I think my experience with the Sistership Network and being a host of a radio show that deals with a lot of issues, a lot more women, but it impacts everybody. That I think just opened me up to be a little more open of myself and showing people that to be strong doesn't mean, saying or going through your traumas or going through your experiences being weak. That's actually being strong. That's actually showing people a level of, hey, everybody goes through something and it's okay. It's not it's not an issue. Don't feel the stigma of going through some issues is that you have to see counseling or you have to see someone, that it's a bad thing. It's actually a good thing, because now you're healing yourself. So and I know I said a lot in that space, but I think it's important for people to understand that it's so important to be, shall I say, the authentic self, right? Be very authentic with you so that you can be authentic with others.
Yeah, absolutely. So it's one step at a time, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It was a daily journey. It was not something, and I don't say that I'm fully healed, right? 2 months is not fully healed. It has to be a very small experience that you have to overcome. But for me, it was a life journey, 20 plus, 30 plus years of things that I had to work through that I never worked through before, because I was constantly working, trying to survive, trying to live life, trying to make a living, trying to go to school as an adult, get my degree and continue to keep moving, and what I found through counseling, which was such a eye opener for me, is that, Steph, what you've been doing is continuously trying to survive and not dealing with everything that you were experiencing on your journey. You kind of repressed it, right? And you left it in the background, and you said, I'm not going to deal with it now because I have to continue to keep working and surviving. And then one day it hits you and you don't realize it. At what point will it hit you in life? And I always thought that it was just in the background, and it wasn't. It was always there. I just didn't realize it until I had one specific incident that happened that opened up the portal of 30 plus years of things that I was going through.
Right. So after everything you said and after your approach, tell me how would you currently describe success?
Oh, so I'm going to give it a twofold answer.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think the initial one is definitely personal, because without personal, there's no success in your career and your life. From a personal aspect, success for me is really being authentic, being true to self, really showing not just others, because at the end of the day, others' opinions doesn't really matter at the end. right? I mean, we go through life, we're at the end of we're at the end of life, and no one's opinion is going to ever matter at that point.
Yeah.
So when you look at it from that perspective and you really truly think about that, you have to start understanding that other opinions don't truly matter. It's okay to take what people say and reflect on it. But at the end of the day, it's you that matters, what you're feeling and how you're dealing with your life experiences. Success from a personal standpoint is really just honing in on self and all the experiences you've had, and be honest and true to yourself on what you want to do accomplish from a personal standpoint. So whatever that is in your life, whether it's running a business, whether it's just success even with family environments, better relationships, and being happy. Success really is truly being happy with self. That's your personal journey. When it comes to your career, it all is based on it's also relationships, right? The building of blocks of relationships that you build within your careers, with who you're building with it, your clients, your peers, your teams. To me, as long as I'm helping someone else, not just it's also helping me. As long as I'm helping someone else, to me, that's success. If I'm elevating someone else or helping someone else to be successful, that's success for me. Because at the end of the day, it's what I feel inside, right? And it's, you can be a vice president, a CEO, all those things, but it has to come with something of substance, right? It's something that you feel deep within yourself that elevates you to that level of success. To become a leader in any element, you have to come from a place of love and care and authenticity when it comes to the people that you're working with as well.
Let go of the control, go with the flow. They'll
Yes.
be really like surrender, but not surrender like give up, just surrender.
Right.
And because we tend to be, no, I'm not going to give up. I'm strong, I'm tough, I don't want to let go. Naturally, our mind, our body will be in that survival mode and be like holding on to all this
Right.
that we already know because we don't know anything else, right?
Right.
So yeah, so tell me, how was your journey as far as letting go?
When and I when I realized I said letting go of control, I will tell you, I am definitely a person that was always about controlling me, right? And controlling meaning holding back and not opening up, and not because I was afraid if I would let go, that I wouldn't have any. It's almost like losing yourself, and you really aren't losing yourself. It's just the fear of losing yourself, right? I think for me it was more about releasing control but still having my boundaries. That's two totally different things. It's okay to release control and still have boundaries as far as your mental state, your physical state, et cetera, and so on, your emotions. Where you don't have triggers, right? Where these triggers, say, hey, this triggers me. I have to learn how to not control the trigger, because the trigger is going to be there. It's how do you cope with dealing with it, right? So I think, again, going back to control for me, and this is probably the reason why I harbored so much inside of me over the last 20, 30 years, is because I was trying to control, not releasing anything that was going to heal me. I thought it was healing myself by holding it. And I was harboring. What happens is you harbor resentment. You start harboring resentment. You start harboring negative feelings, negative emotions. It starts coming out in a very negative fashion. And we don't realize we're doing that because we think that's just us. And what I had to do is literally, at that point, when I started realizing I was breaking down and I was being very emotional, which I never was before, like the breaking down, crying and this, and that. And I said, oh my God, something's wrong. And what was happening is I was finally starting to release what I was controlling inside of me. And it felt so, and I will tell you, even to this day, it feels good. And Yolanda, I have to thank you because I remember one of our sessions when I was in the wellness center, and we started talking about kind of what I was going through and the trauma. And that for me was a release of control, because I didn't, I guess for me, it was more about a trust and fear factor, right? You have to trust releasing to the right people, right? Because you're afraid of who you're releasing to. And you have to also understand that in those moments that you release, you actually feel lighter about yourself. You feel like a calming effect about yourself,
Yeah.
because you start realizing that all this that I was harboring inside, it's like a pound of weight on your shoulders, and you're finally starting to release it and let it go. And I will tell you that with my therapy sessions that I had over the course of the last couple months, even my therapist said over time, she goes, Steph, she goes, you don't realize the journey that you've taken and how you look today coming into my session. She goes, you have this release about you, and this smile and sense of, like, kind of like things,
Understanding.
understanding. And I'm becoming psychoanalytical as well in my journey. I'm starting to see and understand people in a different way.
Mhm.
And understanding that I can't always blame myself. Um, or, I have to, again, it goes back to like releasing that so that you can feel healthier about yourself,
Yeah.
emotionally, mentally, physically. And again, it goes back to opinions of others should not
Yeah.
matter. So again, for me, fear was other people's opinions about me, and also fear of the unknown, fear of what would happen if I kind of released,
Yeah,
or
and that loss that you mentioned, right?
exactly,
That you will lose not only yourself, but you will lose everything else.
exactly.
Right.
And and when you're in and this is the other thing, when you're in a career path in a corporate environment, and I say corporate environment because I've been there and I'm there, it's hard. It's hard to release. It's hard to be your authentic self, because you're always afraid of what a leader might feel about you or think about you. And I'll have to tell you, many years ago, I had a leader that was leaving the organization. He was moving on. And he said to me, Steph, he goes, always be your authentic self. He says, because that is the value you bring. And I was still scared of being my authentic self because of the comfort level that I had with certain individuals. I wasn't comfortable with everybody. So the authentic self wasn't there because I was afraid of how people would think about me. You know what? I'm very outgoing, and I can be blunt, and I can be all things. And those who gravitate to you and know that you're being authentic, they're going to have more respect for you than someone who thinks that you're being you know, just not being yourself, right? And
Yeah.
I have to respect myself for being who I am, which
That's,
is with authenticity.
that's amazing. Amazing. And I really do appreciate
Mhm.
you coming on today. And I'm very excited to share your story. And
Thank you. I appreciate it.
absolutely, absolutely. And yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie, that for your time and for sharing what's so important for many people in the business, many people at homes, many people that's still fearing. What was
Yeah.
that moment? What was and that'll be the last question. It could be short, could be the
Sure.
last. What had to happen, like I asked you a little bit before, but what
Mm.
else had to happen to this moment that you was like already fed up? Like, no, this is you know,
Ooh, I think I think knowing that I didn't want to go in the next stage of my life, continuing to feel the way I was feeling.
yeah,
And I said, and like I said, I turned 50 in December, and I know it's young still. However, you have to think about the next stage in your life, and how do you want to approach the next stage in your life? And how do you want to react to things? How do you want to work through things? I just think I got to a point, and again, I had a traumatic experience happened to me in the end of November that I think was the turning point for me, when I started realizing that I was falling into depression. And, and I started saying, I have to make a change for me. I have to really put myself out there. I don't
Yeah.
want to fall into this black hole, right?
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to come back to my career and still feel resentment or anger or burnout or things of that nature. And I started saying, you know what? Whatever life has for me, I'm open for it. Let it come. It's going to be what it's going to be. That's a level of control that I had to release as well. But I also want what I want out of my life, out of my only personal journey, as well as my career, right?
Yeah. Absolutely.
So
Do you
understand what you
feel
want for
like
your personal.
yep, absolutely. Do you feel like now it's your heart that leading, not what you were told and learn over the years?
You know what? Somebody said, and I might have been through counseling, and a lot of things, and I'm a very analytical person, so I'm definitely
You're very
think
much in your
about
head.
very in my head. Because my first instinct is one thing, and then my head starts thinking, right? Because then I'm talking risk in my head. What's the risk of this? What's the risk of that? Which to a certain degree you should understand risks. But I think what a lot of us do is and I did this, is that my first impression of things really is the spirit talking to me and telling me this is what it really is. And then I start thinking about it. And then I start getting into my head and say, well, I don't know. I don't think I should do this. I don't think I should do that. We have to allow ourselves a bit of grace and understand that the first thought that you have sometimes, most times, is the actual what you should actually be doing. Because the moment you start thinking and analyzing, and not saying that it's because again, I'm a very analytical person, not saying you shouldn't consider, but always come back to the basics. What is it that your heart is telling you? And yes, your mind plays a part of that as well, but also listen to your heart. Because I get, if I say just listen to your heart, everybody's going to be like, oh, well, relationships. I listened to my heart. I got my heart broke. I'm not saying that. Your spirit's going to tell you what's right and wrong. You just need to listen to it. And it's not necessarily your mind telling you that. It's your experiences that you had in your life and what the spirit is telling you initially. And your heart's going to tell you that. Sometimes we try to ignore that. We ignore the signs, and they're right there in front of us, and we've ignored them because our first thought went out the window, because now we started thinking of 100 other different things. So I do lead from the heart now. I think it's important. And yes, do I still have to focus on my journey, and I still have to tell myself every day I need to think for self and my heart, and I still need to worry about self-love and self-care? Absolutely. It is a job within self, but it's a good one. It's a good one to experience. When we think about individuals who are going through, let's just say, some type of abuse, alcohol, drugs, or whatever have you, they have a program they have to go through every single day. Every single day, they have to make a choice of what's the journey that I'm going to live today. And you have to do that for yourself as well. You have to listen to your heart every day. And you have to say to yourself every day, this morning, hello, beautiful. Hello, handsome.
What support or resources do you feel would be helpful for you?
I would say, and I guess it depends, and I'll talk from my own experience. For me, it was about reaching out to the right resources that understood my plight, my issues, my concerns, my stressors of life. And I think that, again, there's such a bad stigma on mental health, such a huge stigma on mental health. And it's so unfortunate because there's so many people suffering in silence of their experiences and they're trying to deal with it internally. And what that does is externally, it makes you unhappy, not feel enriched in life. And I think the biggest thing, if you're dealing with any traumas, even if it was old traumas or experiences or challenges in speaking to people or working with people, find some help, find some resources as it relates to counseling or therapy or things of that nature. That's one thing for people who are dealing with those experiences that they don't know how to get them out. The other thing is, to me, it's about caring for self, whatever that is. To me, it's getting coming in, getting a massage, or just releasing my mind, or taking time away from just the elements and stressors of life, and sitting with myself and writing. Or if you're not a writer, I mean, I write poetry, so for me writing is easy. Some people like singing, some people like speaking. But just make sure that you have an outlet outside of your normal environment for you to be able to express yourself and release whatever it is that you're working through. I think that's important. And again, some people like spa days, or things of that nature. Just find something that makes you feel good and gives you the release in your mind to be able to think and to not have the distractions around you. So I think those are two elements I think that's important, as far as resources are concerned. I think also, if people are in a corporate environment, because I know I work with a lot of people in the corporate environment, think about the resources that your corporate environment offers. There's employee assistance programs, things of that nature. Utilize them. Some people don't realize they're paying for things that they're not even utilizing because they're afraid to utilize them, or they're not aware of it. Find out what your corporate or your business offers for you to be able to utilize. I went through that. First time I did in 20 plus years is use my employee assistance program. So again, it all depends, therapy, counseling, again, release yourself from distractions, take time away just to think, to be able to truly sit down and think and take care of you. Crying if you need to, screaming if you need to, saying, you know what, I'm not dealing with this distraction if you need to. I mean, there's so many things depending on the person's personal journey or things they're working through. There's again those resources that are available for them.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, so that's a great piece of advice you gave our listeners.